Hello, children. Welcome to the online class. Today, we are going to discuss the remaining part of the chapter. In this second lecture, we are going to discuss the case of Germany, Italy, and Britain. We will also discuss the Balkan regions. So, here we start. We have already discussed these things in the previous lecture. So, here I quickly move to the remaining part. We discussed till here. Yes, we have to start from the after the age of revolutions, that was from 1830 to 1848, which was done by the revolutionaries. Now here is a revolution that was going parallel, right, to the movements or to the uprisings that were led by the revolutionaries. This revolution was led by the liberal nationalists. So a revolution parallel to the revolt of the poor, led by the educated middle class, was underway. The events of February 1848 in France led to the abdication of monarch. Means the developments that took place in France had ultimately forced monarch to abdicate, to leave the throne. A republic based on universal male suffrage had been proclaimed. Liberal took advantage of the growing unrest, pushed for demands of nation states on parliamentary principles. In German regions, political associations whose members were middle class professionals, businessmen, came together to vote for all German National Assembly. Frederick William IV, King of Prussia, rejected the demand. Though conservative forces were able to suppress liberal movements, but they could not restore the old order. Here, few things important we have to note. During these revolutions by the liberal nationalists, we have seen that they had mainly advocated for the demands of the voting rights for males only, and only the propertied male was supposed to be given the voting rights. So women were, though they were having their own struggles for the suffrage, for the voting rights, so they were unhappy with the liberal nationalist movements, as they did not advocate for women's voting rights. Moreover, the poor people and their demands were not supported by the educated middle classes. When King William IV was being offered the condition that he had to remain subject to a parliament, the Frankfurt Parliament, he rejected it. And the monarchy, supported by the aristocracy and the military forces, they came together, and thus the conservative forces been able to suppress the liberal nationalist movement, by disbanding the Frankfurt Parliament. But one thing important here is to notice that though the conservative forces were able to suppress the liberal movements, but they could not go back to the old order. Means they have now realized that they have to concede some powers to the people, right? Here is a picture of the Frankfurt Parliament in the Church of St. Paul. You can see how women were, made to stand in the um, gallery there, up in the in the gallery there, and in the visitors gallery they were standing there, and only the males were allowed to participate in the discussions. So women were only playing the role of onlookers, right? That's why women were not happy with the outcomes of the liberal nationalist movements. in the 1848. Unification of Germany. See, the role of Frankfurt Parliament is very important, which I just now discussed. Though it had tried its best to unify Germany with the proposal of making Prussian king subject to Parliament, but it failed because the king rejected. King William IV rejected it. The aristocracy, the monarchy, of course, and the military came together, and because the middle class people, the educated middle class people, did not uh, raise the issues of poor people, so they did not get enough support from the poor section of the society. So uh, the social basis of Frankfurt Parliament eroded. Prussia took on the leadership of the movement for national unification. So here, realizing that they cannot go back to the old order, the king of Prussia took the leadership of movement for national unification. Its chief minister Otto von Bismarck was the architect of German unification with the help of Prussian army and bureaucracy. Wars with Austria, Denmark, and France ended in Prussian victory and completed unification of Germany. Here you can see the picture, the figure 12, unification of Germany. Unification of Italy. In this, the role of Giuseppe Mazzini during the 1830s is very important. He had sought to put together all measures for a unitary Italian republic. Here also, after the failure of the revolutionary forces, the monarchs, they took the responsibility. The monarch Victor Emmanuel took the responsibility to unify Italy. So here we read out, after the failure of revolutionary uprisings, the onus now fell on Sardinia Piedmont under its ruler king Victor Emmanuel II. As he saw, unified Italy would offer them economic development and political dominance. Right. So the greatest problem in the unification of Italy was its fragmentation into several political units, each under a different authority. So Italians were scattered over several dynastic states as well as the multinational Habsburg Empire. During the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided into seven states. Out of seven, only one, Sardinia Piedmont, which we just now mentioned, was ruled by an Italian princely house. Now the uh, onus fell on him, Victor Emmanuel, to unify Italy. The north was under Austrian Habsburgs, the center was ruled by Pope, southern regions were under Bourbon kings of Spain. And later we see that the Italian language had not acquired one common form. It still had many regional and local variations. The role of Chief Minister Camillo di Cavo is very important to mention here. He led the movement to unify the regions of Italy. Giuseppe Garibaldi, under whose command a large number of armed volunteers took to the task of unification. Here you can see the map before the unification and after the unification of Italy. But the case of Britain is very strange. See, Britain became a nation state not because of any sudden upheaval, as we have seen in case of Germany, Italy, and other countries, other nation states like Germany, like Greece, the Balkan countries. But here, in the case of Britain, there was no sudden upheaval, no revolution, but a result of a long drawn out process. English, Welsh, Scot, or Irish inhabited the British Isles. English became powerful and exerted influence over the other nations of the islands. The English Parliament seized power from the monarchy in 1688 and forged a nation state with England at its centre. The Act of Union 1707 resulted in the formation of United Kingdom of Great Britain, forcible incorporation of Ireland, and a new British nation was forged through the propagation of a dominant English culture. So, children, here we understand the case of Britain was altogether very different, as we realize that Britain was not a nation state prior to 18th century, and the primary identities were based on ethnicities such as English, Welsh, Scot, or Irish. The steady growth of power made the English nation extend its influence over the other nations and islands. And in 1688, as we just now mentioned, England established as a nation state, English Parliament seized power from the monarchy. So in 1707, the United Kingdom of Great Britain formed with the Act of the Union between England and Scotland. And England dominated Scotland and Ireland in all spheres. British Parliament was dominated by English members. Ireland was also forcibly taken by the British after the failed revolution led by Wolfe Tone and his United Irishmen, and a new British nation was formed. Right? So here we understand the concept visualizing the nation. Artists in the 18th and 19th centuries represented a country as if it were a person. Nations were then portrayed as female figures. As we can see examples of such female figures, to represent an abstract idea in concrete form, like the democratic ideals of liberty, equality, justice. They can be represented through some female figures in the country for which the revolutionaries were fighting, the cultural movement that we've discussed. So, until and unless we imagine a, a personified figure of the nation, probably the attachment or the concrete feeling may not emerge for the nation. So, for that reason only, nations were portrayed as female figures. They were the female form chosen to personify the nation did not stand for any particular woman in real life. Female figures became an allegory of the nation. Example of, just as we in our country we have Bharat Mata to represent the nation state of India. Marianne, the female allegory of France, her characteristics were drawn from those of liberty and the republic. And Germania, the female allegory of Germany, became the um, evidence of people's dedication and devotion towards nation. Means showing or paying tributes to these female allegories meant uh, that there is a strong inclination for your nation, right? So the devotion and dedication towards your country was reflected through uh, paying homage or paying tributes to these female allegories. These are some of the images of the Germania, you can see, and Marianne. The Balkans, a region of intense conflict. The Balkans comprise present day Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia, and Montenegro. A large part of the region was under the Ottoman Empire. The spread of romantic nationalism, together with the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire, made this region very explosive. One by one, the European subject nationalities broke away. The Balkan states vied with each other, they competed with each other, and each hoped to gain more territory at the expense of others. So they became jealous of each other, and they also tried to gain more territory at the expense of others, at the cost of others. Each power At the outset, also, Russia, a major power, Russia, Germany, England, Austria, Hungary, was keen on extending its own control over the Balkans. And all this situation led to the World War One. Here is a picture of a map celebrating the British Empire. So, from the very concept of nationalism, slowly the major countries of the world, major nation states of the world, the developed countries of the world, they started thinking in terms of a more expansionist measure. And it is this very expansionist policies uh, that made them subjugate another country, especially the countries in the continents of Africa and the lesser developed or underdeveloped regions of the world, where they could find lot of resources, natural resources to extract, to meet their economic ambitions, to fulfill their economic ambitions. So the concept of imperialism developed, in which uh, a developed nation would try to subjugate the um, backward regions of the world and start exploiting those regions for meeting their own selfish ends, for meeting their own economic ends, whatever could help their own country become prosperous. Just as we can see the uh, in case of Britain ruling over India, and likewise, you know, there was a colonial rule by the British over India, and likewise there were many colonies of Britain in America too, and the other parts of the world, right? In African countries also. So till here we discuss, and this is here. This is till here only, and there are questions that we have to do, and for any further queries you can always keep me posted. And these are some of the important terms whose meanings you need to understand. I hope these terms have already been covered while we were discussing this chapter, and the important personalities also, and the symbols and the significance. All this we have to very clearly understand and keep in mind. So if you like the video, please do like and subscribe and share with as many friends as possible of yours. And lastly, I would say thank you all